devil. No.
Oh, really?
Jai, Radha Krishna Prabhu, my obeisances to you once again, again and again. You know, it's great to see you. I haven't seen you since I think it was, 2015 was the last time I was in the UK.
Is it
And
then? Yeah.
generally, I like to do a stopover in the UK when I've gone to India and I'm returning back to Canada. So I get to go on the Soho Street Harinam. But
Yeah.
I,
Oh, that's
I think this,
spectacular.
yes, it's spectacular with Parshuram
My
Prabhu
obeisances
and
to you once
and
again,
oh,
again and
excuse
again.
me, I've got another
You know,
recording going on here.
it's
I'll
great to
just
see you. I haven't
shut
seen you since I
this
think it
off.
was.
Okay, excuse me for that. That's just there's a YouTube that's recording right now. I have to shut that off.
For
Okay, yeah.
recording, you can change my name and put Good Gardeners. You can put Radha Krishna Das for this video.
Okay, I'm not sure how to change your name exactly. I already put a title on it. Oh, rename. I see. Okay,
Because
rename.
that's not
So
quite right.
take
Yeah.
off Good Gardeners International Higgins. Take that off.
No, that's
And
not quite right anyway. It should be just the Good Gardeners International. That's the
Radha,
charity. But if
Radha
we're doing it
Krishna.
for the devotees, we should just put Vedic agriculture because that's the page, you see.
That no, that is the title. I get. We're already recording right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
are you?
you're on. You're on the air, Prabhu. So please
Okay.
familiarize yourself with me. Who was the first devotee that you met, and what year was that?
I first saw the devotees on television, on the news. And it was the London Rath Yatra, must have been 73.
Okay.
And they were shaved heads and the seeker, and they were pulling a cart, this giant cart along in London. And I thought, oh, the Mohicans have arrived from America. That's what I thought. And I thought, well, they're not harming anyone. That's great. And 75, I joined. I met some devotees on the Harinam giving out magazines and records. I bought the India album from them.
Very nice. Yes, I was
Bhakti
very.
Chaitanya.
Oh, very
Bhakti
nice.
Chaitanya Swami.
Known as
Yeah,
Raghubeer at that time.
that's right. I worked with him for a long time doing Daymont Records and all sorts of programs. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
Um,
for me, from that time, it was 1964, and the Beatles first hit the Ed Sullivan Show with, I don't know, 30 million viewers or something. I thought, wow, these guys are really cool. I'm totally into this. I'm in. And I had no idea that I was signing up for the Magical Mystery Tour because in 1967 I heard John singing those words, Elementary Penguin singing Hare Krishna. But so I would imagine you
yeah.
being born in Her Majesty's abode there. That did you know about the Beatles connection with Krishna as well? Did you know a little bit about that?
Yes. I first heard the song, George Harrison's song, My Sweet Lord, on a
Yes.
jukebox. And I didn't know what the heck it was. I kept listening to it, and they were singing all these different riffs, and there was Hare Krishna and all these different riffs at the end of the song. And
Right.
it didn't make sense to me until I wrote off after I got the India album. It said the manna in the book I got as well, which is Perfection of Yoga. And it said the Mana's address. So I immediately sort of just drove up there, knocked on the door, and Mahavishnu Maharaj opened the door.
Oh
And
wow.
I'd previously been to the Buddhist Center in Oxford and knocked on their door, and they did not. Some guy came and said, "Oh, the man's away. He's away. He's away today. Bye bye."
Right. Wow. Krishna's mercy. So
But
that's
the
and did you have a background?
man
Sorry, your voice is
opened the
breaking.
door, and there was my Vishnu Maharaj going, "Come inside." Say again.
Wonderful.
Lost you. Lost you there.
Yeah, I can hear you now. You've come back. Great. So
Okay, say that question again.
I was just wondering, did you have any background in agriculture or an interest in that prior to your becoming a devotee, or is this something you developed over the years?
No, I grew up on a farm.
Oh, wonderful.
And
What part of
all
England?
my
Where?
time.
Where?
Somerset. Somerset, west side of the UK, a dairy farm. My father was a mixed farmer, and
Wow. So you
I've
were
always asked that.
You were a coward boy from birth.
Kind of. Kind of.
Wow, and
Uh,
and
no, to put it like that.
your father was a coward man.
Well, yeah, I mean, he had 300 acres, and sorry, he had 103 acres, 103 acres, and he had a mixed farm, and we did combining. He repaired his own combine out of scrap parts, got it going, and he did sheep. He had cattle, very very few pigs, and like that, and we all grew up on the farm. I had two sisters, and that was our life. You know, we enjoyed it. It was hard work, but we enjoyed it. And I've always asked the devotees, you know, when I have groups or anything, I say, well, anyone grown up on a farm? And no one ever has said that in
Right.
the whole history of ISKCON that I've experienced. No one's grown up on a farm. So Tapa is right about saying we're all city people. And that's why it's hard for us to grasp it, I think. You know, and we should have been onto this years ago, you know, training more.
Yes, most of us are city slickers, including myself. With my former wife, I did move us out into the countryside in Quebec, which they have is called a rang, R-A-N-G, which means a rural country road. And I did all my cooking on a wood stove for a year. My wife did not cook, so I did all the cooking. And I was amazed at the quality of the prasadam that I was preparing just using wood fuel instead of electricity. It had a flavor
Yeah.
to it and a quality to it, which was
Yeah.
unlike electricity cooked prasadam.
Yep. That's true. It's definitely true. We sell a mini pizza oven, mass produced, but very cheap. And it's fired with wood chips. You just dehydrate the wood chips because they're free everywhere. And then you
Right.
just put in a handful or two and you cook a pizza in 1 minute.
Wow.
It goes up to 500 degrees centigrade.
Very popular for the pizza lovers, and I don't know anybody that's not a pizza
Uh,
lover.
the, the best pizzas, the Italian, yeah, they cook like that in very hot
So
temperature.
very fascinating. You're coming from a whole other mindset. So probably like myself, when I joined in the Chicago temple, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and 13 hours directly south is Chicago. So I met Srila Prabhupada there July 4th weekend in 75, and you came in 73. So most of us, we were encouraged to go out either on Harinam and or book distribution. Was that your background too?
Well, yes, it was, but it was 75 when I actually went to the manor.
Okay.
I joined in 75 with
Okay.
Petitu Dharan,
Oh, very
Petitu
good.
Pavan.
Yes, yes, the
And
astrologer.
he's on the Facebook. He writes, he's in Bulgaria.
Yes.
Um,
So
and I've met a lot of people I haven't seen for years on Facebook. So the agricultural page is very good. At the moment, it works very well. And I hope it keeps like that because it's tremendous communication with all kinds of devotees, you know.
well, you're welcome to use Srila Prabhupada's disciples, my godbrothers and god sisters group. Took me 11 years to find 904 Prabhupada disciples. So if you want, and there's many devotees from UK there, not as many as there could be, but I probably have at least 40 or 50 UK devotees in that group. So any development in your preaching, you please put it there. And prior to that, I created a group called Srila Prabhupada Tributes Open Vyasa Puja book. By the way, April 15th is the deadline to write our offering. Many 12 years ago, Jai Swami contacted me and he said, you know, Gaura, back in the day at 26 Second Avenue, Prabhupada asked every devotee to write an offering and it would all go into a book. But of course, as ISKCON became huge, then it just became limited to temple presidents, GBCs, and sannyasis writing for that book. But now anyone who writes for that book, and we've had our record year, I think, was last year. We had 300 offerings, which compared to the 900 Prabhupada disciples I located is only one third of those that I'm in touch with. But if you write an offering for that book, sptributes.com, I think it is, then you get a free book sent to you with everyone else's offering. So it's a wonderful gift you get just
Yeah.
for your offering. So please spread that word to all your friends, to all our God brothers and God sisters in the UK. So that group I was the first group I started just to look for Prabhupada's disciples to promote this Vyasa Puja book. Now that group is over 20,000 people. So you're also welcome to put your
Oh,
posts about Vedic culture in that group, Srila Prabhupada Tributes, Open Vyasa Puja book, and because we have a duty to educate the younger devotees, and now especially with Klaus Schwab and his new global reset and how he's trying to minimize everyone to like what is it like 500 million people and get rid of the feeders or whatever he calls the rest of us, then we need to be growing our own food more than ever because we certainly don't need genetically modified organisms in the foods that we offer to Lord Krishna.
yes. This is our mission. I mean, since 2016, January 2016, I took over the Good Gardeners charity here, which was founded in 1962. And it was supported by the Archbishop of Canterbury. It was a Christian group. And oddly enough, I discovered them through writing, you know, on the internet. And they said our office is now moved from Gloucester right up to Arkley, which is right near the manor. So I said, oh, I'll come around and see you. And I went around and saw the director. And he said, you better join the Good Gardeners because what you're doing sounds right up our street. So I joined. And later I went to his funeral because I was at the last AGM taking the minutes. And he said, well, we're going to close down the Good Gardeners because, you know, we've been doing it for many years and we can't carry on, it seems. And I said, oh, I could do it. And he said, well, you've got a little farm down there at Well End where we had lots of programs. Why don't you take over? So just before it closed, we managed to sort of salvage it. And we had previously 4,000 members.
Wow.
They had accumulated 4,000 paying members. Yeah. But of course, they all died. And the next generation was a different kettle of fish. You had to start again, really, which is what we're doing.
Right. So I'm curious to know.
But very interesting.
Yes. With all of your background.
The Good Gardeners.
Yes. I just wanted to go back to.
Yeah, the Good Gardeners.
Wonderful to hear. Yes.
The Good Gardeners were the founders, the originators of the no-dig system in the United Kingdom. Oh. And it came from a little book in 1947 when a chap called Guest did no dig somehow. And he had this huge field of wheat and it was up to here. And he was standing in the picture at the front of the book going like this. Look at my wheat. You know, it was like one up to Hitler after the war, 1947. And that's the opening picture of the book and how it was presented at the Coventry Horticultural Show, the Royal Agricultural Show. And no one could believe that if you dig up a square of land, of turf, and put this material on top, which we now call HH4, the rest of the field will be covered in pests and disease, slugs, snails, caterpillars. But that plot, that 1 square meter, will not be affected by slugs, snails, and caterpillars on your crops. Absolutely amazing. And still I give lectures, people don't believe you. I've had people stand up in the audience and say, I've been a gardener for 50 years. I don't believe what you're saying. So it's cutting edge stuff. It's revolutionary. And I've done it for 25 years myself. Wow. And it absolutely works. And we've now produced a commercial product, the first commercial fertilizer that stops all these pests and diseases.
And why? And what is it? But what is it that's in that fertilizer that prevents all these pests from appearing?
Well, the slugs and snails, it's nematodes, right? And the caterpillars, it's about protein, synthesized protein in the plant. And I took the minister of, he's now the Minister of Power in Nigeria. He came to my farm. Well, at the time I was working on a private estate just up from Well End Farm, and it had a huge wall around it, you know, like a 15-foot wall garden. And he came and sat there, and I said, now you watch, middle of the day, the butterflies coming over the wall all the cabbage white butterflies flying down onto the cabbage patch, flying round and round and round, and they went over the wall again. They did not land on the plants.
Wow.
And he said, do you know, that's fantastic. And he invited me to speak at Coventry University, which was actually a Howard Memorial lecture that I gave, which I sent to Prince Charles because he didn't do one that year. And he wrote to me a very nice letter thanking me very much for doing the Howard lecture that year.
Great.
So that's what happens when you start getting into agriculture.
A feather in your hat, Prince Charles.
Well, it'll help. You've got to brand yourself, get branded. You see, we're good gardeners now. And we went to Haiti, the earthquake. We've been to Africa. We've done scale-up trials in Uganda. We've sold systems in Bermuda. And oddly enough, the guy who received me in Bermuda now lives in England doing the same system in Watford near the manor.
Oh, wow.
And he's like a devotee. So it's like you make devotees as you go because it's so natural. It's just, you know, it's from the heart, isn't it? Farming's from the heart.
Not only are you growing vegetables, but you're growing devotees simultaneously.
So they go out on Harinam and they love it. You know, it's like, who can say no to the London Harinam when you see it? It's the ether of the whole universe is being affected by these Harinams. And this is so important because gradually it will change. It will change.
I was surprised when I was there in, I think it was 2015. I met all these woofers that were working at the manor. And I would see them at lunchtime. They'd just be sitting by themselves. And for me, going back to 77, I mean, that's where I learned how to do the Bhakti program from Danavir, now Maharaj, Vipramukhya, and Rohini Nandan, the famous Three Musketeers.
Oh, you know all of them, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, I used to try to imitate everything that they were doing, trying to make devotees in Canada. And I was surprised to see that nobody was sitting with these woofers because I'm thinking they could potentially be devotees. So I would sit with them. And I said to him, hey, I'm going to go on the Friday night Harinam. Are any of you going to come? And one girl said, what's a Harinam? And I realized, wow, nobody's talking to them. And I said, it's a joyous time when we go and we chant the Lord's names in the street with musical instruments and we dance and people dance with us. And she said, oh, that sounds like fun. I want to come. So at that time, I remember there was, I think, 20 acres or something. I don't know how many acres the Havali have taken, but it seemed that there was a lot of, there was land at the manor by which things could be grown. Is that so?
Yep, they do. They have a farm there, yeah. A lot of it's gone to car park, you see, with the festivals. So they can't really farm it properly because the car park has to be there for several big festivals in the year. So that's a bit of a contradiction in farming terms because, you know, you need to rotate your land to do proper farming rather than keep it as car park and a bit of grass.
So with all of your background over the years, did you not find any of the administrators at the manor, did you find them encouraging and supportive or really not so much interest?
Well, actually, Vipramukhya was probably the most encouraging at the manor. He took me, we went up in Ireland because we sold a system to the Irish temple in Israth at his invitation. So I met him over there. And that, of course, there wasn't much interest in the first 20 years, but after sort of 20 years went by, the world became a bit more environmentally conscious because of global warming and all these shortages and, you know, different things. And so I've got 12 of the senior sannyasis who have seen my system and have been to visit it, or I've been to lecture to them and their places. And, you know, including Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you know, they all heard what I was saying, and you know, it's Gaur Govinda Maharaj. It's very nice, you know.
Shivaram
very nice that
Shivaram Swami took advantage of some of your knowledge.
I went to his center, some time ago, and we started. They were digging up the Goshala. They were just taking down the old Goshala. We're going to concrete. So I said, that earth that is underneath those cows for many, many years. What are you doing with that? And they said, oh, well, we're throwing that away. I said, no, no, no. In China, they make that into fireworks.
Oh,
Yeah. The name slips my mind at the moment, but they use it for fireworks because it's got all this.
it's called punk. Punk.
No, the name I'm thinking is different. Anyway, but it's fertilizer, you see. So we take it, and that's how cows like to live. Cows like to live on Earth, and that's our mission. And when I joined the Good Gardeners in '95, I brought in the work of Albert Howard. You see, Albert Howard was the one that Tapper's mentioning in his video, because he's in the introduction to permaculture at Bill Mollison. And the whole point is that when I came back from India, writing the book of Howard's book, I rewrote one of Howard's books. That's the new edition. The Lost Science
of Organic Cultivation. Okay.
This is by Sir Albert Howard. Yeah. He said, just like for permaculture, I've been involved with the Office of Permaculture in the UK, that the biggest hole in permaculture and the biggest hole in farming of any agricultural system is the neglecting of waste. You see, this is the biggest mistake. And waste is not actually waste, it's actually a resource. And we turn it into fertilizer in 90 days. Wow. And such the demand is because fertilizers now tripled in price coming from Russia. They may not sell us any fertilizer, whatever. There's so many farmers in England are not growing crops. There's a percentage figure on the crops they're not growing because they can't afford fertilizer. So we have the fertilizer of the future, which can be made, and it's of course made with cow dung, which purifies all the other ingredients like human effluent, which is a Vedic input, I must add. And the reason we don't like it is because of the influence of Hinduism. It wasn't Prabhupada's mission. Prabhupada liked it very much. I've got a paper, A4 page on Prabhupada on this very subject. And in the middle, there's a quote by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who said the same thing. And so that's our mission. And Prabhupada said we should take the pollution from Vrindavan, and instead of putting it in the river, which we used to do for many, many years, I was communicating with Brajahari on this, we should turn it into fertilizer. And Prabhupada said, yes, you can grow nice fruits and vegetables offerable to the Supreme Lord.
This is from cow dung specifically.
No, human waste.
Oh, human waste. I see.
Yes. But human waste and the combination of the other waste, and cow dung is the purifying agent. So that's what makes it such a wonderful end product.
Wow.
And we've been selling it, using it for Tulsi. We offered it to Tulsi Devi. We've used it on many Tulsi plants. She loves the end product. Everyone writes back. It saves Tulsi plants that are dying. They look almost no leaves. They'll come back to life.
Wow.
I renovate plants that go on skips. I renovate bay trees, olive trees that people throw out. And with this material, just round the root ball in a new pot, new life, completely new life.
Wow, you bring the dead back to life.
Well, it's almost like that. Yeah.
I was thinking when I took my four-season permaculture design course about 10, 11 years ago, I learned about Rob Hopkins and Totnes and the In Transition movement. And I watched the movies In Transition 1.0, In Transition 2.0. They were talking about peak oil, and how are we going to live without depending upon it. And one of the things they were talking about was creating a time bank where by giving an hour to one person, another person gives an hour to you. Have you met this Rob Hopkins, and did you talk to him about fertilizer?
There was a convention at Berkhamsted near the manor, and he was chairing it, and I went along, and they split us into groups. So you had a big table each, a round table with all the people split up, and you got on with your debate, whatever it was. And he went round just listening to each group. And at the end, he said our group was the most fired up, the most exciting, and the most activity.
Wow.
because I was just telling them waste is your fertilizer. Waste is fertilizer. Even if you go right into it, beyond Steiner, because Steiner made the big mistake. Rudolf Steiner made a mistake, and he said, you should not use human waste because it's negative, right?
Wow.
Now, his follower was called Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer in America, he said, no, that's not true. Human waste should be included. And when I was in Mayapur doing the Goshala, we ran the Goshala for 6 months on this very system. Jai Pataka Maharaj in the morning program, one morning, I was telling him, you see, that this guy had said it's negative, and we say it's positive because you offer it to Krishna, therefore negative becomes positive, right? So one morning in Japa, everyone's chanting away, and everyone's chanting away like this, and then suddenly Jai Pataka Maharaj goes, positive! And then quiet, dead quiet. Everyone's chanting more and more. And he does it again in the same Japa period. Positive! He loved it. And Subhag Maharaj really likes it. He says, yes, they're very good for cauliflower. Human effluent as an input is Vedic. It's a Vedic thing. And we've gone so far down the road of repulsion, which actually is Krishna's energy. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj is saying. All things are Krishna's energy. There's a lovely little statement in the middle of this article I wrote, and I've handed it to the GBC back in 2005, I think it was. No, 1995. I wrote the thing for the GBC, a paper, and no one made any comments. But the fact is, it is confirmed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj that, all these things are Krishna's energy. If they're used in his service, it becomes his energy. It's useful. So we have to do that because there's more nitrogen in human waste than there is in cow dung. And everyone's wondering why there's no food, because everyone's throwing away all these wastes, right? All the animal wastes, all being thrown out into huge piles, and the runoff kills the plants next to it. It's killed trees at Bhaktivedanta Manor. It killed the rice paddy in Mayapur. I said the nursery rice paddy all died from the effluent coming out of the Goshala. It's not being processed. If you process it, it's a fertilizer, and we sell it at £1,000 a ton.
Wow. You're reminding me of the verse
That's
by
how much it's worth.
Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Varagyam Uchite. That if you have something that can be used in Krishna's service, but you don't use it, then that's incomplete renunciation. You have to utilize everything in the service of the Lord. Yes.
Yeah.
What's the procedure for processing it? Is there some way to add the human waste to the cow waste to a certain proportion?
Well, you see, the thing is, people just, even permaculture people, they just get repulsed at the idea because they don't have a system which is away from the human hands and the human sight. We do, right? We do. And our first prototype was this. If you can see that picture there. That was made in Navadri. This is a toilet with a spare unit, you see.
Yes.
Right. Now that is a toilet with its spare unit, and we filled one up, and it's covered. You see, you cover the effluent with the finished product, the HH4, because it's the most microorganically active substance on Earth. Billions of microorganisms in one teaspoonful.
Wow.
Right. So you put that on, like all modern compost toilets. You don't need a fan, electric. You don't need solar. It just absorbs everything because it's dehydrated. So immediately it comes in contact with the effluent. It absorbs everything. It's very scientific. We even sell the medium to compost boat users on boats. And we developed this in Mayapur. And the first unit that you've just seen, Smita Krishna Maharaj took it on the plane to Sweden.
Very nice.
So we've now perfected it. It's on our website, Good Gardeners International, and it's all in a box with, a proper arrangement, urine separation and everything. And it's all in a bag, like a Hoover bag. So everything's in a bag, and the bag is tipped into the units, the processing units. You don't see or smell anything. I've even done a video in front of permaculture students, putting one in and it was all being filmed. And after we left, I said, "Oh yeah, did you know what I just put in there?" And they go, "No, no, no. We just thought it was kitchen waste, but it wasn't. It was human effluent. They had no idea." So
Yeah.
it's very, very cool how it works. It's very, very clean. And Jai Pataka Maharaj named it Satvik. He named it the Satvik indoor toilet, which was the original name for it. And of course, we've changed it now. But and he used it on his boat party in Mayapur, on his traveling boat party.
It sounds like what
So
you're
there's something
doing.
for all of ISKCON. All of
What you're,
ISKCON can take advantage. Should not
yeah,
go down the Hindu route of I'm not going to get involved with it, because that's what the Hindus say, right? The Hindus very much averse. It's a Hindu. The word Hindu is not in the Bhagavad Gita.
right.
It's not mentioned in any text because it's the Bhagavad Gita. It's far, far older, right? And this is a Vedic system. And fifth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam says all things from the earth should be returned to the earth.
Huh.
So therefore, it shouldn't be flushed down a toilet into the rivers and seas, killing the coral and poisoning all our rivers, as it is in the UK.
Right. So the Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and I don't know if it's Arthashastra or what is the name of that specific Veda for agriculture, but I'm assuming that whatever the name of the Veda for agriculture is, gives that idea of the combination of human and cow waste mixed together.
Well, this book, there's different books. There's a Veda on trees, I have a Veda called the Vriksha Veda or something about trees. I've seen one of those, but this book is according to the 23 or 26 year head of New Govardhan, Australia, Ajita Prabhu. He got the book when he met me at the New Mayapur Agricultural Conference. He said this is like a lost Veda.
Wow.
So he was very keen, and I'd like to pursue that in Australia because they've got a big farm there.
And who was this Albert Howard, the original author of this book? What's his background? Is
He
his
he was a student of agriculture, and he studied at the Y College in Kent, and he later went off around the world doing his. We did 30 years research in India when he wrote that book, the origination of that book, and he's now considered the grandfather of organic farming, because in recent times, because his work was so successful, he stopped pests and diseases all over the world. And black rust in wheat, all kinds of problems that Canada's having with wheat is threatened. The wheat supply of Canada is threatened. It's all because the soil's shot. All this aflatoxin poisoning in Africa, we're working on that with Save the Children. We have an MOU with Save the Children because they want this system in Africa, and the MOU is 3 pages long of small print who would benefit by having this system. So that's due to go into Africa. And we're aiming now after COP26 at India and some other, California. California and our partners were in Yucatan. That's it, Yucatan, Mexico. They have connections there. And they're on limestone. So limestone, all the pit latrines, right? It soaks through the limestone straight into the water table. It's a complete disaster. So you've got to have dry sanitation. That's the Vedic thing. We have all the Shastric quotes actually that are coming from different Shastras about how you don't put it into water. This is a Western concept for expedience, but it's actually a root of disease doing that.
putting the fertilizer into water, you mean, or limestone
Well,
specifically?
the pollution, the polluting elements, any animal waste, human waste, it shouldn't go into water because it just ends up poisoning whatever it touches.
But the same elements mixed with earth or other fertilizer becomes a life-giving substance.
Yes, it's
Fascinating.
about the process. That's right. That's
What
right.
science. I've heard
Yeah.
that there's over 30 nations that have banned Bayer Monsanto genetically modified organisms and Roundup and all the nasty chemicals from their nations. They will. I heard in Hungary they burned all their genetically modified fields. Of course, Bill Gates is very much into this. He owns over 300,000 acres in America. He's the biggest landowner, and whether it's killing people through vaccines or whether it's destroying the soil, if there's a buck to be made, that's the bottom line, right?
Well, I've just got onto Twitter myself on a laptop, not on a tiny little Matchbox mobile phone. I can't deal with those things. But, 3 words per line, it's not good. So on a computer, I'm now tweeting top people in the government, right? And I'm on sites by Bill Gates, who writes his tweets. So you get heard far more by Twitter than you do by emailing. Now, Bill Gates knows who I am because his wife, Melinda Gates, was on a program to do with a school we were dealing with in Hertfordshire. And they know about my program. So I wrote a program, a little text on Vedic agriculture. You can look it up. It's just a few days ago. Dear Bill, it would be much better to farm without GM products. It would benefit indigenous farmers. And here's 12 reasons, which I quoted from someone else's tweet, of why not to use GM crops. So he will read that because he's writing the tweets. And we can write very humbly that this is actually a much better solution for the planet because there's so many negatives they found to GM technology.
Well, as long as he can make money from your system, he may be influenced.
Well, let's hope he does, because it's not going to work with GM crops. It's going to cause. They've already got super weeds that have outranked the poisons that they put on them, because nature does that. So it's about harmony with nature rather than fighting nature. And if you do that and you don't reject anything, you see, which is what we've been doing, then you don't have a problem. You see, it's about working with, not rejecting.
Agreed. Well, it sounds like you're part of. You're a leader in the agricultural revolution of the world.
Hare Krishna Dasi liked what I was talking about in India. She was there, and that was when we did the GBC presentation to them. It was in '95, and she liked very much what I was saying. But of course, the GBC, as you've been saying, they're not really into agriculture. I think most of the devotees joined earlier in ISKCON before the organic thing started. And so none of them were really familiar with it. But we have to step outside of our society to find out what's going on. So that's working with people. And you find out chaps like Albert Howard, he was very sympathetic towards the Indian vegetarian diet, for example. And he said all the cow dung in India should be used 2/3 as fuel, or 3/4 as fuel, and 1/4 as a fertilizer ingredient. So he said it right there about 100 years ago, that was. And this book is 100 years old. No one has rewritten this book in 100 years.
How many copies have you printed?
Well, that's on the second printing now. Let's just say that.
You have a few thousand copies on hand?
Well, I've got plenty, because now it's digitally done. You can order to, as you go.
So people can get
cheaper like that.
People can get it from you if they want.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's on our website. We have a very nice review in the front, because I lecture at the Oxford Real Farming Conference, which is a big conference. And there's a very nice review here by Sir Julian Rose, who's the owner of the Hardwick Estate, England. And he says, here's his review. The lost science of organic cultivation will show just how to achieve maximum soil fertility at absolutely no cost to the wider environment. A truly life-saving formula that no agriculturalist can do without. Right? And then he says also, every food we depend on to nourish ourselves itself is nourished by approximately 10 centimeters of topsoil. Unless the topsoil is maintained in a fertile and dynamic living state, we have no chance of sustaining longevity for the human race.
That's Albert Howard.
Well, that's Sir Julian Rose. That's
Julian Rose.
that's his review of our book.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. When I took the 4-season permaculture design course from my teacher, Shantri Kusera, in St. Thomas, Ontario, he taught me that there are biodynamic nutrient accumulators such as nettles, comfrey, others, you'll know. I'm not sure if alfalfa is one of them or not, but by chopping them down and mulching them, because they have very deep root systems, then you're rebuilding topsoil. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing is, Howard said, nature never leaves bare soil. Right? If you see bare soil, like in Malawi, you're finished. I went to a lecture by some guy who works out there, big NGO, at a show, big conference, had 150 people in the audience, and he was saying that. So I went up to him afterwards, and because he said, well, we put on some chemicals, you see, we try and grow something with chemicals. So I went up to him afterwards and I said, well, why are you doing chemicals if the soil's dead? And he said, because he said, there's nothing there. You can't grow anything. So you might start it with chemicals and then go over to an organic system. And I was saying, well, we would start with an organic system. We have a fertilizer, you see, not about mulching, not about deep rooting crops, not about intercropping. Much quicker than that is the fertilizer. So with our fertilizer, you can just put it on and immediately it holds 20 times its own weight in water. So it's great for Africa. We have a review from Jeff Lawton of Permaculture Research Institute. It holds its own weight and it gives all the nutrients, NPK, all the micronutrients. We add volcanic rock dust, which has 170 or 72 listed minerals. Right now, we're all ill. I have a whole book on mineral. We're ill because we're deficient in selenium, calcium. We're deficient in this, we're deficient in that. And that's causing all the different diseases that the human body has. If you're healthy and you have proper balanced diet with the right minerals, you do not get ill, right? That was found in the early part of this book. The first chapter is stated that they researched China, Korea, and Japan 100 years ago. Howard's mentor was King, Dr. King. He went to these countries and he said there was hardly any cancer. No one was ill. They were all farming this way, and they hardly ever killed any animals because the animals were so valuable, you see, for their manure. Of course, it needs our introduction that you only eat the cow after she's died, after the cow's died. But that's a spiritual consideration. But the fact is, they didn't kill that many animals because they relied on them for the manure. So that's how they survived. And they were the densest populations on the planet at that time, and they were not ill. So this backs up the Greek philosophy of let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And this is my contribution or comment to Ayurveda, because Ayurveda says so many things. But if you're growing certain crops to treat yourself in Ayurveda, you're working with crops that are already poisoned by Western systems. So unless you've got organic crops, your Ayurveda is going to be more ineffective. And Prabhu said prevention is better than cure.
Right.
That's a very nice one, because that's true. If you can not be ill, you don't need any medicine. And I haven't seen a dentist for 10 years. I haven't seen a doctor for 25 years. It solves your teeth, all these holes in teeth. They keep drilling, putting. No, you don't need any of that with this science. The research group who deals with dental caries, I forget the name of the guy who wrote a book on it, but I've met people who follow that, and they're fascinated in that if you have holes, I've let all my fillings come out, and the holes heal over with the minerals, you see, so you don't have to have fillings. You don't rely on dentistry. That's a Western thing. That's a modern science. Okay, ancient dentistry might have been you pull a tooth out if it's rotten. But the point is, if you're healthy, you don't have these problems.
Right. I'm fond of nutrients or mineral rich foods such as I take Nanoclopsis gadite. It's a type of algae that grows in the ocean. It's cultivated in Spain. Chlorella is related to that. Spirulina is related to that. These are very mineral rich foods. These sea vegetables like kelp, they've got the 72 minerals. Even the Himalayan rock salt have the 72 minerals. Bee
Yes.
pollen, they have all these trace minerals as well. So these are superfoods. So it sounds like what you're involved in is you're helping to cultivate superfoods, but to feed
Yeah.
the planet. There's a
Yeah.
gentleman not far from here called in Havelock outside of Peterborough. His name was, I think, David Fried or Friedman, and he was selling rock dust out of a quarry, and he was showing in his photos gigantic zucchinis and various vegetables. They look like vegetables from outer space because he was enriching his soil with this rock dust, and I was really impressed by that. Fertility farming.
That's
Wow,
what we grow.
gigantic
That's what we
vegetables
grow.
from outer space.
Place called Well End, next to the manor, 2 villages from the manor. And
You have
near
to mention.
Rothamsted, we're
Sorry.
working with Rothamsted Research, which is the oldest research station in the world. And the director of Rothamsted, I've met 3 of the directors, and I talked a 45 minutes lecture to the top soil scientists there. And the guy came to my farm, let me see if I've got the picture.
What was the name
He
of it? Can you spell it, please? The name of that? Watson?
Rothamsted Research,
How do you spell that?
Rothamsted.
Rothamsted Institute?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's it. Anyway, I don't think the picture of him examining, it's on my website, but he came and he saw the farm, and I had a little hedge, a box hedge, about a windbreak about 12 inches high, and I was digging up some veg behind this hedge, and he was on the path, and I dug up parsnip, you see, and I brought it back to the garden, and we cut them up and looked at we had 19-inch courgettes, 19-inch courgettes
Wow.
that subsequently kept without refrigeration for 5 months.
Wow.
And according to the Ministry of Agriculture in England, that's due to the mineral content. The keeping power of vegetables is due to its mineral content. So this Professor Crawford, he looked at these 19-inch parsnips and 23-inch courgettes they were, and he was just amazed. He didn't say much, but he went away, and when he'd gone, I went back to the farm to carry on my work, and I went up the path where he'd been standing, looking over the hedge where I'd been digging, and not only had I pulled out this 19-inch parsnip, there was 4 others exposed, touching each other, the same size, tops this big, top of the parsnip this big. And he'd seen that. I guess that's why he didn't know what to say, because this is way beyond conventional organic farming.
Wow.
And I have a picture on my website of the local restaurateur. She came and she's holding one of these puffs. She says, please supply us with this.
Yeah. Real
So
food.
the devotees are always worrying about money on farms. There isn't any money to do anything. But there's huge money now in food production, organic food, and fertilizer, which has not been addressed by anybody in ISKCON since the day one. The fertilizer is worth more than the milk simply because there's far more of it, you see. And this is my point in one of my videos. Our second website is called Sustainable Agriculture London. It's linked to the Good Gardeners. And there's a whole load of videos on the media. And the Professor Reed is on this one from Vedic, which is Western Engineering Development Committee. He was doing a survey in Haiti at the earthquake of the state of sanitation, invited by DEFRA. Okay, DFID, and they came over and they came to my site, and there's a whole film of that, which is very interesting. Professor Reed, and he advocated, yeah, what you're doing is fantastic. What you're doing is the best thing. It's probably the best site in Haiti. That's what he said on the film, and he later sent some Oxfam researchers to my farm in England.
Wow. So they're growing they're growing their own food now in Haiti, which they were not before.
Well, the whole thing was I was there for 3 months, and I was invited back because the group that sponsored me was CRS, Catholic Relief Services, and the only reason I met them was because I went to the log base camp where the airport was, and just barged in on a few meetings, and waiting for them to start, I started talking to people, and one of them they thought I was the presenter. So they all sat down and I was talking, and the guy was late. He hadn't come. They thought I was giving the talk, and they all took down my details. And CRS came round and said, right, come to our office at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Wow. And they gave us the funding and the contract. Yeah, CRS.
Because you're just bubbling over with enthusiasm. Utsahan Nityaya Darya, Rupa Goswami said. That's the only way you can be successful, is to be enthusiastic. So what is your site again, please, so others can go visit?
www.ggi.org.uk.
And GGI stands for Green
Good Gardeners International.
ggi.org.uk.
That's it.
Great.
That's it. All our products are under shop, and we're linked now with since COP26. Our partners in Devon, you see, is like a devotee, because she came to visit our little farm in Hertfordshire. She came with 3 of her staff. She didn't say much, and then 5 months later, she wrote to me and she said, "Can you come down and see us in Devon?" So I did. And her husband, they'd been to the Manor, they've been to Rishikesh in India, they've seen so many things, and they're like devotees, and they want this solution. So we're on board with them as a bioengineer, as one of her groups, and she promotes all these different sustainable technologies, and they're doing a 30-acre farm promoting agroecology and our growing system, the HH2 horticultural system.
The letters HH stand for what?
Well, Howard and Higgins. You see, Howard was Howard, and then it just came up as a product number, really, a product listing, because you have to have a name on the product. But there's Howard, and there's me, and Howard. Some people said to me in one conference, "When did Howard die?" And I go, "Well, he died in 1947." And he just, after that, the Soil Association was formed, because his work was the causing information for the founding of the Soil Association. So they said, "Well, when were you born?" And I said, 1953. They said, "Oh, you could be him again." That was nice.
Interesting. What does the 2 stand for? What does the 2 stand for?
HH2, well, no, simply product numbers. HH1 is the big scale system for farms, windrow system. 2 is the box system, which is listed there on the website, the twin box system. HH3 is the toilet. HH4 is the finished product. HH5 is the bioline. It goes on like that. And we sell now Victorian plows, which they used in the Victorian age, called wheel hose. because most gardeners obviously don't have oxen that they can bring on, and you don't need oxen on a vegetable garden. You really don't. They're for the big heavy work, you see, right? Hauling, transport, not ploughing, not ploughing. We've written many articles to the Dandavats about the plough versus the box, because Balaram didn't plough. And I told Indrajumna Maharaj this at Rathayatra in London, and he's going,
but he always carries a plow. He carries a plow.
Ah, yes. But what if you look for millennia, since time immemorial, he's been carrying a plow. But what kind of plow is it? I said to Maharaj, he plowed. He didn't plow, but he plowed through the soil. He plowed like that through the soil. He didn't turn the soil over.
Okay.
That's what Western farming's done. And that was invented, apparently different versions of that, but it was coming from when the Americans, when they started plowing up the prairies to create food crops. You'd plow the grass crop over and, and then you'd have no grass, right? But if you do that with our system, we do it by mulching. Actually, you can mulch out the grass. You never have to plow again, you see. But of course, there's big money in plows. And so we've all been convinced over the 50 years of ISKCON, we've got to plow, we've got to get a big plow. And the oxen can't even get down the furrow. They can't even get to the end of the line, deep plowing, turning over, bringing up the stones, the shale from the lower layer. You destroy the soil structure. The worms are all exposed, and you see plows going along in any old paintings. And they're followed by flocks of birds, yeah,
right,
all coming. Seagulls come right inland because they somehow sense that there's food, and they go behind the plow and they eat all the worms.
Right, and you don't.
And then in the summer, when you're disking and harrowing, all the dust is blowing away. Yeah, you see great cloud. That's soil. That's soil erosion.
Wow.
You don't need any of that with this system.
That's very we're gonna say primitive, not even primitive, but very destructive, very foolish farming to use these huge monster machines.
Well, we've been addicted to this. We've been convinced by the establishment for 100 years, that we need all these things. We need waterborne sanitation. Actually, the Romans started that. But we've been doing that. We've been plowing. We've been using artificial fertilizers. And everyone thinks you've got to do it. England is actually way behind America. There's more environmentalists in America than there is in England, I would say. And they've got much more advanced systems than we have in England. And so, England's behind. England is very slow because England always thinks we're the leaders of the world. We're the greatest nation of the world, and they go around like that, but they're miles behind in environmental farming. Really are.
So these systems you have, HH1, 2, 3, 4, is this exclusive to yourself, or are these other people are developing the same systems? Or
no, we make them. We make all the products and we sell them. And Save the Children, for example, are ordering the HH2 system for Mozambique in 3 locations across the country because they've got aflatoxin poisoning in their soils, which killed 250,000 people in Africa on the last count.
So
in 1 year.
So do you have representatives here in Canada?
Not yet. I've been writing to America. But Canada, great, yes.
Tell me what you need me to do, okay? I'm interested.
Right. What you do is you simply buy our equipment from our website. We make it in 2 factories. We ship it over to you. And the aluminium one is now cheaper. We're just getting the price confirmed in April because everything's shut down and gone slow since COVID and Brexit and now Russia. So it's very hard to get anything made, but we'll ship it to you. And it comes with this wonderful instruction book and tells you all about how to work the system, right? And there's a printout at the back as an operational chart here, operations, how to operate the system. It's very self-explanatory. You can make fertilizer from garbage in 90 days. Optimum fertilizer, which the whole world is revering. Everywhere we go, they're saying there is no comparative fertilizer to what you have.
Wow, wow, wow. Fantastic.
And that's
So if
garbage. That's what we call garbage.
wow, yeah, no, this is eureka. This is amazing. So if we have another session, are there certain topics that you would like to address that we didn't address this time? Because you were saying a lot of
Well,
people talk about, uh-huh.
I tried to jam in everything because sometimes you get one chance. But of course, we can go into growing techniques and different farming programs, techniques like that. Yeah.
You were saying there's people who talk about why, but there's not enough people talking about how to do it.
That's what I see. That's what I see. Everyone says why. Vandana Shiva likes our page.
Yes.
So the chap in Africa who discovered after shooting 100,000 elephants decided that it was actually not such a good thing to do. What's his name? He gave us a like, and he discovered, about grazing, mass grazing, animal grazing, controlled grazing. And we can talk about that because ISKCON doesn't do controlled grazing, which is what cowherd boys were for, right? What did cowherd boys do? They went out and controlled the cows.
Uh-huh.
That's for another time.
Yeah, we've got a lot to learn, especially those who are into Sakyaras and Gopas. They have a lot to learn about what Gopas do and how they do it.
Well, when you studied a bit of this science and then you read the 10th canto again, and any canto, you see it in a different light. Because one devotee said on a film, I think it may have been Rupanuga, you read the Shastra and you hear what you need to hear from it. And every time you read it, you hear something different. That's the nature of spiritual knowledge, isn't it?
You hopefully have made more progress. There's a different level of receptivity. You have a different perspective. Wonderful.
It's so nice to see that video of Rupanuga, because every time I've been to New Vrindavan, they would show us around. I got lost in the woods one time, but they'd say, oh, that house over there, that's Rupanuga's house. And we'd never see him. And I was there at the building of the temple, right? And then I was there at the opening of the temple at different times. And we never saw Rupanuga. That was always his house is over. That's his house over there. And I've just seen him for the first time yesterday on the video you released.
By
Fascinating.
Krishna's grace, Rupanuga Prabhu has agreed to come, and I look forward to doing many more videos with him. We're reading Purna Pragya Prabhu's new book, Life Beyond Darwin, and Rupanuga gave the inspiration, of course, as well as Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, but definitely we need to be doing a lot more Bhaktivedanta Institute preaching. And I mean, you're teaching the science of farming, and I can't see why that would also not be under the purview of Bhaktivedanta Institute, since Darwin had his own.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah.
Howard worked with Darwin and had so many things to say about Darwin. They worked together at different points. But Howard's work was based on Indian culture, you see, because he spent 30 years there. And his research student, his guru was Dr. King, F.H. King, and he wrote the book Farmers of 40 Centuries. Now that's a find. I had the originals of all these books copied from the libraries. You're allowed to copy 10% of these books at a time. So I had to go back to copy each book 10 times. Yeah, and I got these books, and I've got a whole suitcase of originals photocopied from the British Library.
Wow.
Because you can't get these books you may be able to get them online now, but actually they have someone has edited a portion of the Farmers of 40 Centuries, because I've seen it online, and they've edited out the work of Wolf, Kellner and Carpenter, who said in the early part of the 1900s, America was tipping into the sea so many million tons of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium in the form of dumping sewage that they call that the advancement of modern civilization. That's what King wrote. And it's actually the cause of disaster.
Yes. Yes. I hope you'll get some of those books into print.
Oh, yes. Well, we've got several on our website now. You can look under shop, and the Howard books are, I've got some there. Because for some reason, the Soil Association, who Howard was the cause of the formation, they refused to sell his books. They were selling his books, the ones that are on that page. Not this one. This one I've got, The Lost Science. They never released that. I released that one. But they did the other ones that are on there, and they refused to sell them anymore or print anymore. Now, why? I don't know. It's something very strange going on, but somebody has to figure out what that is. I don't know what it is. Something subversive. I don't know. But why wouldn't they want to print the books of their founder?
Yes, yes. Which one did you say was
The originals, the unabridged ones.
Well, there's a saying that an editor's work is never done, so editors are always looking for something to edit, right?
Yeah, probably.
I was wondering if
Yeah.
Kalakanta, Minister of Agriculture, Kalakanta, is he in touch with you?
I've met him at the manor, yes, and I met him at New Mayapur because he was chairing the agricultural seminar, the yearly one, and I did a little presentation there, and I didn't get invited to any of the others after that. He never invited me to the next one or the next one, so I don't know if he liked what I was doing or not, but I don't know.
What's
He
not to
never
like?
spoke to me again, actually.
What's not to like?
I don't know.
Our godbrother Abhiram Prabhu, as you may know, when he was in England with Srila Prabhupada on Prabhupada's last tour, Srila Prabhupada had expressed to him that his only regret was that the second half, the other 50% of his mission, had not been established, of developing sustainable rural communities. And Abhiram Prabhu asked him, well, how do you expect to accomplish that, Srila Prabhupada? And he said, I will go with you. Next, I will go with you to Gita Nagari, and I will sit down with you under a tree, and I will teach you how to live off the land. So I'm wondering if you're in touch with Abhiram Prabhu, since he still feels some responsibility since Prabhupada told him that.
Well, I met Abhiram. Of course, he was the director of the Mayapur Development Committee, and we attended one of their meetings because they had an office in London. And I made my presentation there, and I was told by the manager of the conference, you only get 2 minutes, you see. So I complained to Hari Kesh. I said, 2 minutes, I can't say that much in 2 minutes. And he said, tell him you've got 10 minutes. So I talked, we went on for about 10 minutes. But after that, I got invited by Jayapataka Maharaj, Hari Kesh Swami. The committee invited me to India, and that's when we went to Mayapur and ran the Goshala for 6 months on this system.
Very good.
So that's in the book. That's mostly what the book's about, the conversion of Mayapur to this system. And then now they have a lot of waste management going on. They've got a whole contingency of waste recycling going on.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I remember I was there maybe 10 years back, and I said to one of them, Bengali Mayapur managers, I said, so Prabhu, since Mayapur is our, world headquarters, are we now growing enough vegetables to feed all of our brahmacharis? And he said, oh, no, Prabhu, we just go to Calcutta. It's much cheaper to buy it in the market there. I said, well, you don't know what's been sprayed on those vegetables. And so I realized, gee, it seems like a lot more work needs to be done to stress the importance. But, not everyone's inclined to work in the field, right?
Well, I had the Calcutta University come to Mayapur to see our system in the book. They're pictured looking at our system, and they told me that those vegetables in Calcutta, they're on sale, but they've cut off all the black poison bits from the sewage contamination that they're growing in because it's raw sewage, you see. Ha! And that's what you're getting. So it's a very serious situation because, of course, sewage, if it's not treated, is the worst spreader of disease. You know, polio comes, different diseases come from sewage, you know.
Not what we should be serving to Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Ranamadava, Lord Narasimha, the Ashtagopis, what to speak of their devotees.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lost science indeed, but it is a Vedic science, and we need to establish this while we're still here for the future, for the next 10,000 years.
I'm with you. I'm glad I could record you today so that the whole world could hear about the vital seva that you're doing. While we're growing vegetables, we're growing Vaishnavas.
Mm, that's true. That's true. That's the way to look at it. Yeah, very good. Nice to talk,
Wow. So
Prabhu. Hare
I look
Krishna.
forward
We
to
can speak again and
yes, talking
continue.
about the techniques and controlled grazing. You just let me know when you're available and we'll do that.
Great. All right. Thank you. Haribol.
Cha Kripa cha Patitanang Pavnibhyo Radha Krishna Prabhu
Hari
Namo Namaha Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai
Butterfly.
Nitai Gaura Hari